Look, I know how this sounds. I know what you're thinking, what everyone else thought. I can practically hear the judgments forming in your head already, like little bubbles of righteous indignation ready to burst. Oh, her, you're saying. The one who threw it all away. The one who ruined a perfectly good thing. And maybe, yes, you're right. But before you pick up that first stone, before you condemn me to the inferno of bad decisions, just hear me out. Give me a moment. Give me a minute to explain from my side what it felt like. Because it wasn't some spur-of-the-moment decision born of malice. It was a slow, creeping suffocation. An absolute drowning in the predictability of a life that was supposed to be perfect. My name is Sarah. I'm 32 now. And yes, I was the one who blew up my 10-year relationship with Mark, the man everyone, including my own family, considered a saint. The man I was supposed to marry. The man I probably should have married. But I didn't. And I won't lie to you, it was largely my fault. But it wasn't simple. Nothing ever is, despite what the neatly packaged stories tell you. We met in college, Mark and I, young, optimistic, full of the kind of easy love that just felt right. He was everything you'd want. Kind, reliable, smart, handsome in that understated, trustworthy way. He remembered my favorite coffee. He'd leave little notes for me when I had a big exam. He'd listen for hours about my stupid workplace dramas. My parents adore him. My friends thought he hung the moon. He was stable, a rock. He was the kind of person who always had a plan, who thought ahead, who made sure the bills were paid, and the car had gas. He was the responsible one, the mature one, the one who saw our future stretching out, clear and unclouded, like a perfectly blue sky. And I just kept wishing for a storm. That's the problem, isn't it? When everything is too good, too stable, too predictable. Everyone saw him as attentive. I saw it as suffocating. His reliability felt like a chain, his planning like a pre-written script for my entire life. His quiet strength, which everyone else admired, felt like a constant, unyielding pressure to be as content as he was. To be as normal. He'd bring me flowers every other Friday. Not because it was an anniversary or because I was sad, but because it was Tuesday, and Tuesday meant flowers. Can you imagine? What's the point of a gesture if it's on a fixed schedule? His sweetness, which once melted me, started to feel like a weakness. Like he was too afraid to challenge me, too afraid to argue, too afraid to just be messy. He was the perfect golden retriever boyfriend, always wagging his tail, always there, always loving. And I started to feel like I was drowning in golden fur. Our life together became a series of perfectly choreographed routines. Wednesday nights were sushi night. Friday nights were movie night at home, curled on the sofa with a blanket and the same brand of popcorn. Sundays were for meal prepping. Every vacation was planned 6 months in advance, down to the last museum ticket and restaurant reservation. Where was the spontaneity? Where was the thrill of waking up and saying, "Let's just go, right now, to the beach"? Mark would have a panic attack. He needed a packing list. He needed to check the weather. He needed to know exactly how long the drive would take and what the traffic would be like. My friends would say, "You're so lucky. My boyfriend can't even remember my birthday." And I'd just smile and nod, a little piece of me dying inside. Was this it? Was this the grand adventure of my life? A perfectly ordered, utterly predictable spreadsheet of existence? It felt like I was living someone else's dream, someone who yearned for quiet contentment. And all I wanted was chaos. Just a little. Just enough to feel like I was alive, not just existing. That's when Ben came into my life. He wasn't a lightning bolt, not at first. More like a static shock. He was new at work in a different department. And from the moment I saw him, I knew he was everything Mark wasn't. He had tattoos, a wicked, cynical sense of humor, and eyes that looked like they'd seen things Mark could only read about in adventure novels. He was unpredictable. He'd show up 15 minutes late for a meeting, hair a mess, but with a brilliant idea that saved the whole project. He never wore a watch. He ate lunch whenever he felt like it. He'd tell stories about hitchhiking through Europe or quitting a job on a whim to learn to surf. Mark, bless his heart, had never done anything on a whim in his entire life. The first transgression, as you call it, was so small, so innocent. A casual, "Hey, wanna grab a coffee after work sometime?" from Ben. And I said yes. My heart hammered, not from guilt, not yet, but from a dizzying sense of forbidden excitement. We talked for an hour, then 2 about anything and everything. He listened to me, really listened, not with that patient, understanding nod Mark always gave, but with a spark in his eyes, a quick wit that challenged me. He made me laugh, a deep, belly laugh that felt like a release I hadn't known I was holding. He didn't ask about my plans for the weekend. He didn't ask if I'd remembered to pick up the dry cleaning. He just talked about life, about dreams, about the utter absurdity of it all. And for the first time in years, I felt seen. Not as Mark's future wife, not as the sensible girlfriend, but as me. A woman with thoughts and desires and a wildness that I thought had died under layers of domestic bliss. That first coffee became a second, then a third. Then it was late-night texts, stolen moments in the break room, whispered jokes that only we understood. It was exhilarating. The thrill of it, the secrecy, it was like a drug. Every time my phone buzzed with his name, my stomach would flip. I'd delete the messages, of course. Not because I was malicious, but because I wasn't ready for it to end. I wasn't ready to face the consequences, to shatter the delicate piece of my life with Mark. Each lie I told, each excuse I fabricated, "Oh, I'm working late, had to help a friend, just need some alone time," felt like a little victory, a small rebellion against the suffocating perfection I was trapped in. It was a terrible, horrible thing to do, I know, but the feeling of being alive, truly alive, was so potent, so overwhelming, that it eclipsed any lingering guilt. I rationalized it, of course. My brain worked overtime, building elaborate castles of justification. Mark didn't understand me. He couldn't give me this. He was content with beige, and I needed color. This wasn't about him, I told myself. This was about me, about finding a part of myself that had been dormant for too long. Ben made me feel edgy, unpredictable, sexy. Mark made me feel loved, yes, but in a way that had become as comfortable and unchallenging as an old sweater. He was so trusting, so utterly devoted. He'd look at me with those steady, loving eyes and say, "I trust you completely, darling," and I'd just nod. His unwavering belief in my goodness, his complete and utter ignorance of what I was doing, it felt less like a constraint and more like a green light. A confirmation that he wasn't really paying attention, that he didn't see me, not really. If he did, he'd know I was capable of this. And if he didn't know, then how much did he really understand about the person he was planning to spend his life with? It was a twisted logic, I admit, but it felt profoundly true at the time. The line, the one I swore I would never cross, became a blurry smudge, then disappeared entirely. It happened after a particularly frustrating fight with Mark, not a screaming match, of course, because Mark didn't do those. It was one of his quiet, disappointed arguments, where he'd just look at me with those hurt eyes and make me feel like the worst human being on the planet for wanting something he couldn't grasp. I remember him saying, "Why can't you just be happy with what we have, Sarah? Isn't our life enough?" Enough for him, maybe. After that, I called Ben. And I went to his apartment. And everything changed. It wasn't just the physicality, though that was electric, wild, nothing like the gentle, familiar intimacy with Mark. It was the feeling of absolute, unadulterated rebellion. The total embrace of everything I thought I wasn't allowed to be. In Ben's arms, I felt like I was shedding a skin, becoming someone new, someone vibrant and unpredictable. He looked at me like I was a puzzle he wanted to solve, like I was a storm he was desperate to weather. He made me feel dangerous, and that felt incredibly powerful. Mark had built a comfortable cage for me, gilded and soft, but a cage nonetheless. Ben offered me the illusion of infinite sky. I started to believe that what I had with Mark was the lie, the performance I had put on for 10 years to be the good girl, and this wild, breathless connection with Ben. This was the truth. This was real love. The kind of passion I had only ever read about in novels. The kind of love that Hollywood sells you, that makes you feel like the main character in your own epic. I imagined our future together, spontaneous trips, late-night conversations fueled by cheap wine and big ideas, a life lived on the edge, full of glorious, beautiful uncertainty. We would travel the world, quit our jobs, live in a tiny, chaotic apartment filled with art and books. It was a beautiful, intoxicating fantasy. Except it was just that, a fantasy. One I spun entirely out of my own desperate need for something more. Ben, it turned out, was not looking for a co-star in an epic love story. He was an excellent supporting actor for a brief, intense drama. I remember the conversation so vividly, even though I've tried to erase it 1,000 times. I had finally, after weeks of agonizing, built up the courage to tell Mark I needed space, that I wasn't happy. I had a vision of telling him, then going straight to Ben, ready to embark on our grand adventure. So I mentioned to Ben, casually, that things with Mark were ending, that I was clearing the way for us. And Ben just looked at me, a polite, almost amused smile on his face. He said, and I quote, "Oh, Sarah, you didn't actually think this was that, did you? This was fun. Intense, sure. But I'm not really the commitment type. You know that my entire imagined future, the one I had built so painstakingly, shattered into a million tiny pieces right there. The sky he had promised was just a painted ceiling. He wasn't a rebel, he was just a boy." I stood there, utterly dumbfounded, the air knocked out of me. The exciting mirage had dissolved, leaving me standing alone, shivering in the cold reality of my choices. But the universe, apparently, has a twisted sense of humor. Because while I was reeling from Ben's casual dismissal, my actual life, the one I was supposedly escaping, was already collapsing. It wasn't a confession, not from me. It wasn't even a dramatic confrontation. It was cold, methodical, and utterly devastating. I came home from work one Tuesday, the same Tuesday Mark usually brought flowers. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet. A note was on the kitchen counter, folded neatly, in Mark's precise handwriting. "Sarah," it began. "Just Sarah, no, darling, no, love." My stomach dropped. I opened it, my hands shaking. "I know," it said. "I know about him. I've known for a while." My blood ran cold. Known for a while?
How?
How could he have known? He'd been so normal, so trusting. Then I read on. "I've seen the texts. I've seen the credit card statements. I've seen the location data from your phone. When you said you were at the gym or with Emily, he wasn't just aware. He'd been investigating. Systematically. While I was weaving my stupid, selfish fantasies, he had been quietly, calmly, gathering evidence. He had known. He had known. And he had said nothing. This whole time, he had been watching me, observing my lies, my deceit, all while pretending everything was fine. The level of control, of cold calculation, was breathtaking. He had let me dig my own grave. The note continued, "I've already packed my things. My brother helped me move everything this morning. I've transferred my half of the rent to your account, and I've canceled the joint credit cards. Our joint savings account is now split, with half in a new account under my name. I've also changed the locks. Please don't try to contact me. Ever, not a single emotional plea.
Noray, no te ars.
Just a list of facts. A clean, precise, absolute severance. It was a surgeon's cut, swift and final. There was no negotiation, no begging. Just the quiet, chilling hum of a life being systematically dismantled. My world, which I had so carelessly fractured, had now splintered entirely. I stood there, the note crumpled in my hand, in the silent apartment that suddenly felt vast and empty. And then the second blow. A text message from Ben. A generic, almost robotic, "Hey, heard things got messy for you. My bad. This is a bit much. Wish you the best," and then he blocked me. No explanation, no further contact. He was gone, evaporated into thin air, leaving me to deal with the Fing fallout. I had lost everything, both the secure, stable life I'd had and the thrilling, dangerous one I'd pursued. I was alone, utterly, completely alone, in the cold, empty apartment that used to be home. The aftermath was a slow, painful descent into complete isolation. My own friends, the ones who had listened to my endless complaints about Mark's predictability, suddenly became very quiet. Emily, who I'd used as an alibi more times than I could count, actually confronted me. She said, "Sarah, how could you? Mark was family. He loved you. How could you be so cruel?" I tried to explain, to rationalize, to tell her about the suffocation, the boredom. But she just looked at me with pity and disgust. "He was good to you," she repeated, like a broken record. My attempts to explain fell on deaf ears. Mark's family, who had treated me like their own daughter for a decade, simply disappeared. His mother, who I loved, didn't respond to my calls. His sister, Clara, who I considered my closest friend, unfriended me on every social media platform. My social circle shrunk to nothing. I was radioactive. I tried to reach out to Mark just once. I sent an email, a long, rambling apology, filled with all the half-truths and self-serving justifications I could conjure. He never responded. A few weeks later, I heard through the grapevine that he had changed his email address and phone number. He was gone, a ghost, a presence erased from my life as cleanly as he had erased himself from our apartment. It was like I had never existed to him. And that, in its own way, was more crushing than any angry confrontation could have been. And then came the news. The slow, drip-drip of information that filtered back to me, confirming my worst fears. Mark was thriving. He got a promotion, a big one, at work. He started going to the gym, apparently, and got into hiking. People would mention it innocently. "Oh, did you hear about Mark? He looks so good, so much lighter. Like I was a Fing anchor. I saw a picture, once, on a mutual friend's social media, before I unfollowed everyone. He was laughing, genuinely laughing with a group of friends. He had a glow about him, a genuine happiness that twisted a knife in my gut. He looked free.
And he was free.
Free from me. The truth bomb, as you call it, came from Mark's mother. I saw her in the grocery store, months after everything. I almost ran the other way, but she saw me. She approached me, her face unreadable. I braced myself for a screaming match, for tears, for something dramatic. Instead, she just looked at me with a profound sadness. "Sarah," she said, her voice quiet, steady. "I loved you like my own daughter. We all did. And you broke his heart. You broke his spirit." I started to babble, about how I was lost, about finding myself. She cut me off, gently but firmly. "You didn't find yourself, dear. You just found someone to hurt. And Mark, he deserves better." "He found better." She turned and walked away, leaving me standing in the produce aisle, surrounded by apples, feeling like the most pathetic, rotten fruit in the whole thing store. Her words, so calm, so devoid of anger, were more devastating than any shouted accusation. Because they were true. Then came the final blow, the one that truly sealed my fate in this lonely existence. A text from Emily, sent by accident, I think. A picture. Mark, on a beach, smiling that wide, genuine smile I used to love. His arm was around a woman. She was beautiful, radiant, looking at him with such obvious adoration, and her left hand was resting on his chest, and on her left hand, glinting in the sunlight, was a ring. Not just a ring. An engagement ring. They were engaged. Mark, my Mark, the predictable, boring Mark, was getting married to someone else. Someone who, no doubt, appreciated scheduled Tuesdays and quiet nights in. They were building a life together, the life he had wanted with me, the life I had thrown away. And I still tell myself I don't regret wanting more. I don't regret wanting passion, excitement, that feeling of being truly alive. That has to count for something, right? That desire for authenticity, even if it led me down a destructive path. I mean, who wants to live a life that's just beige? He couldn't handle me. He couldn't give me what I needed. Ben was selfish, and he wasn't ready for anything real. It wasn't just me. It was the situation. It was the rut. It was everything. Maybe I needed to burn it all down to see what was truly left. Maybe this was my journey. My painful, necessary journey of self-discovery. But then, sometimes, usually late at night, when the silence in this apartment is too loud and the walls feel like they're closing in, I think about that perfect, stable life. The one where I had a kind, loving man who remembered my favorite coffee. The one where I had a family who adored me. The one where I wasn't utterly, spectacularly alone. And I wonder, was it really so bad? Was it really so suffocating? Or was I just a fool who couldn't see the immense, quiet beauty of a man who loved me enough to build me a fortress when all I wanted was a wrecking ball? And I sit here, with my chaos and my solitude and the bitter taste of freedom on my tongue, and I wish I knew. I truly wish I knew.